You are listening to the Power Women in Green podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Hiokuma. I get to talk to a power woman in green. These women are doing business in a new way, and it's feminine and from the heart. Behind every one of these women in sustainable business, there's a story worth being told. Join me and learn from her road to success and how to incorporate her knowledge into your own life and career. Kiva is an international nonprofit. It was founded in 2005 and it's based in San Francisco. Kiva has a mission to connect people through lending to alleviate poverty. At Kiva, they celebrate and support people looking to create a better future for themselves, their families, and their communities. At Kiva, they envision a world where all people hold the power to create opportunity for themselves and for others. And today's guest is Kate Bennett. She's the Senior Portfolio Manager for Kiva in Latin America. Welcome to the show, Kate. It is so great to have you.
It is so great to be here. Thank you for having me, Ellen.
Thank you. So Kiva is an organization I've been following for some time now, and I very much wanted to have you on the show around this time of year because I feel this is the season that people are at their most generous. So I'm hoping to inspire them to give to an organization such as Kiva. So let's jump in right away. I explained a bit what Kiva stands for and does, but can you explain a little bit further?
Yes, I would be happy to. I guess the best place to start is probably just to talk about sort of the simple truth about the world. And this is in 2017 or really any time that gave rise to Kiva. And that's this, that we all have dreams. Everyone across the world has dreams. This is one of the most powerful things that connect us as humans, no matter who we are or where we're from. We dream about new possibilities, about audacious challenges, about immediate needs, about far-reaching goals. You know, we dream about creating a better future for ourselves and for our families and our communities. But while talent and dreams are universal, opportunity is not. And we live in a world today where over 2 billion people don't have access to the financial means to fulfill or realize their dreams. So they have the will, but they lack the means. And I think what's very apparent to us at Kiva, and I think probably your listeners will resonate with, is that with 50% of the world's population living on less than $3 a day and billions of people around the world without access to financial services, things might seem a bit bleak, and the challenges that are facing our world, poverty, health, education, climate change, women's rights, can sometimes seem really intractable or really insurmountable on our own. But by 2016, 150 plus million people had access to microfinance loan, and over 1.5 million of those were through Kiva. So there's a way to go yet, but think of the opportunity and think of the potential of all those that we're working to reach. And I think that fundamentally is what Kiva stands for. We stand for equality of opportunity. And as for what that actually means, what that looks like in terms of our organization, we're a crowdfunding website where anyone in the world can go and make a loan of as little as $25 to help someone start a business, to go to school, to access clean energy, to basically to realize their full potential. And we're crowdfunding loans for borrowers in more than 80 countries. These are people that are often financially excluded or cannot access fair or affordable sources of credit. And if you are interested in going to kiva.org, as you know, whether a listener or whomever, you can go to the website and browse people's stories, see what they're planning to use their loans for, and again, make a loan of just $25. And for some borrowers, these are loans that their businesses need to survive. For others, these are loans that help to realize a lifelong ambition. Kiva borrowers might be artisans or farmers or students or shopkeepers. But if you make a loan on Kiva, 100% of that money goes straight to funding loans. None of that is overhead. And what's really cool is that Kiva lets you choose where to make an impact, whether you are lending to friends in your own community or people halfway around the world. And for a lot of Kiva lenders, it's both. Kiva sort of creates the opportunity or empowers our lenders to play a special part in someone else's story. And then one more thing I'd add that I think our lenders find really exciting and really special about Kiva is that I keep saying the word lend instead of donate. On Kiva, you're making loans. You know, they're not donations. It's a loan. And by that, I mean you can fund a loan and get repaid. And once you're repaid, and about 97% of the time our lenders are, you can either take that money out of Kiva or hopefully you can fund another. And you can lend again and again and again with the same $25. And that, for us, is what's most exciting about Kiva.
That is so cool. And I think my listeners definitely can
resonate,
yeah.
Oh,
with
good.
Having dreams, because I think that's a very emotional point you touched there, because everyone does have dreams. And I don't think you really realize it, and that all those people we're talking about, they all have their own dreams, and they don't have the opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So will you tell us a little bit more about your role within Kiva and what you do in Latin America?
Yes, I would be happy to. So making a loan on Kiva is so simple that sometimes people don't realize how much work goes on behind the scenes. The truth is that Kiva works with over 300 in-country field partners. So those might be organizations like microfinance institutions, nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, social enterprises, what have you, on over 5 continents to provide those loans to people. Why we do that, working with qualified in-country partners with a strong social mission and a better understanding of the local context, allows Kiva lenders to fund those high impact and meaningful loans that are really specifically designed for the local context, delivered in a cost-effective and scalable way. That is the key element that has allowed Kiva to continue expanding to more countries. And our field partners are really what allow us to be able to attract lenders that are passionate about social impact and poverty alleviation. The other thing I add about those in-country field partners is that Kiva loans aren't just dispersed in cash. It's not just, a $300 loan or whatever that's provided to the borrower. Kiva loans come with a variety of other non-financial services. Maybe those are savings and microinsurance programs. Maybe they are, business or financial literacy education. Could be hands-on job and skill training for the local market. I have partners that provide health and gynecological services for their clients and for their families. So I could go on and on and on. These are services that are each specifically designed for the market context to complement a microloan so that it's truly a life-changing package for the Kiva borrower. So in response to your question, what I do, I work with our field partners in Latin America. So essentially, all of the loans that you make on Kiva, there's an element both of impact and then of risk of each one of those loans. We want to make sure that there's an impact of that loan, but we want to make sure that you get that money back. So essentially, my job is to do financial and institutional risk monitoring of our partners and sort of social impact monitoring of those same partners in Latin America. And I focus specifically in the South American region and then 1 or 2 countries in Central America.
Interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the organization in Latin America that lends to businesses within the entire coffee agriculture chain? You talked about this when we first met.
Yes, I would so love to. I rave about this partner. I do not have favorite partners. I love my partners all the same. But one of the things that we've seen quite a bit of in Latin America, we have a pretty sizable proportion of our portfolio is in agriculture. And a not insignificant proportion of that is in coffee. And there are a number of challenges in funding loans to coffee producers, and I'll talk about those in a minute, that I think that this particular partner, which is called Cooperativa de Ahorro y Crédito, or just Copac Norandino in northern Peru, I think that Norandino does a fantastic job of designing a microloan product and non-financial services that really, really meet the needs of their borrowers. So essentially, Norandino is a rural credit union. They've been around since 2005, and they work specifically with smallholder, fair trade and organic certified smallholder farmers in the highlands of Peru who have limited financial resources and market access. And so what's really cool and what's really unique about Norandino is they're actually partnered with a number of agrarian cooperatives who provide really meaningful, impactful services to the borrowers that Norandino works with. One of the things that we try to do at Kiva is be really thoughtful about tracking the impact of the loans that are made on our site. And what goes into that is quite a bit of research into, the evidence and the studies on what actually generates an impact in the world. It's not so easy to say, I think that organic coffee is important or fair trade coffee is important. We really try to dig into, okay, what are the characteristics and elements of organic or fair trade coffee or the cooperatives that they might be selling through that generates both social and environmental impacts in the lives of their borrowers. And Norandino checks nearly all the boxes. So, to give you a few examples, for their borrowers that don't actually have collateral. And that's quite common in microfinance. They need to find a sort of flexible type of collateral because they may not have titles to their land. They may not have large assets that they can back up their loans with. So one of the things that Norandino does is use sales contracts as collateral instead. So essentially saying, all right, we know that you'll likely produce this much by the end of this season, so we'll look at that as collateral instead. Another thing that they do that I think is really terrific, in any loan, as many of us know, most of us pay off our credit cards every month, right? What is really challenging in coffee or agriculture generally, if you're working with a product that has one annual or maybe two annual harvests, making monthly payments is very challenging for household income. So what Norandino does that is really special is that their loan schedules all have some sort of flexibility, grace periods. Some of them are bullet or balloon loans, which essentially means farmers do not have to repay until the time of the harvest. And I could go on and on. I mean, they're working with borrowers, allows those borrowers to access fair trade and organic certification. Norandino provides them with transport and storage infrastructure to sell their goods at the end of every season. They provide financial management training related to agriculture, and on and on and on. They provide them with fair access to markets. So what's really special about them, and this is what you sort of alluded to, is that Norandino does not just fund loans to the farmers themselves who are producing the coffee, but they actually provide loans to the cooperatives that buy coffee from the farmers and then ship them to market. And that's really important because I think the wording that you used was that they're funding the entire coffee agricultural chain. And that's right. They're allowing their cooperatives, by providing them access to credit, to purchase a huge amount of coffee from their farmers at a certain time of year that they're going to resell only 3 or 4 months later. But without that access to capital, the liquidity challenge would almost be insurmountable to those cooperatives in the meantime. So again, I don't have a favorite partner. I do not pick favorites, but Norandino, I think, is doing really powerful and really meaningful work that allows farmers to access credit that is specifically designed to them and their needs, and really allows them to take their business to the next level.
Yeah, I really wanted you to tell that story because I find it so inspiring and impressive. It's so impressive at all that they do, the whole chain. And I don't even realize how they could have come across this, but they've probably been in this since 2005.
Yeah. Well, and the one last thing I'll say about them is that their management team, their loan officers, everyone involved in that organization, in addition to having a high level of expertise in the area of microfinance, all of their loan officers are agronomists. The majority of their management team are former coffee farmers. So they are the experts, which is why they're able to design a service and a product that makes so much sense for their borrowers.
Yeah, that does make sense. How many of Kiva's microloans are given to women versus men?
81%, roughly, as of this morning, of our borrowers are women.
Okay. We talked about how women, when they receive microloans, they give 80% of that amount back to their families and communities, whereas men give back about 19%. Investing in women means investing in communities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. Kiva has traditionally always had a higher level of focus on loans to women, and I think that's true generally of microfinance. If you look back to the founding of Grameen Bank 40x years ago, Muhammad Yunus, who's considered the sort of godfather of microfinance, is what people call him. He was working specifically with groups of women. And I think we've continued to see that be the case with our microfinance partners. And it's both a question of risk and impact for us. Since Kiva's inception, we've funded almost $800 million in microloans to women in over 86 countries. And we're really proud of that, but there's still tremendous work to be done. So women own about 60% of micro enterprises globally. Women's hands produce 66% of the world's work. We produce 50% of the world's food. And yet women bear 70% of the world's poverty. They earn only 10% of the world's income and own only 1% of the world's land. And these are figures, hearing them, it's just so clear that there's tremendous work to be done. There's a huge amount of progress still to be realized. And that's underscored by the potential of making a loan to a woman. When you lend to a woman, you can send off an amazing chain reaction. Women, as you mentioned, reinvest 80% of their income in the health and the well-being of their children and their family. Daughters of economically empowered mothers are more likely to follow in their footsteps. A child, regardless of gender, born to a mother who can read, is 50% more likely to live past age 5. And for girls, every additional year of school increases her learning potential her future earning potential, by 20%. So there's a huge amount of potential in making loans to women. There's a huge need to make loans to women. And when we're looking at microfinance partners or social enterprise partners, nonprofit partners to fund, who are interested in working with Kiva to fund loans, we certainly do have a focus on ensuring that, there's a women's empowerment element to it, or they're reaching women within a certain sector or designing non-financial services that are specifically designed to women, because it's almost a moral imperative. It has to be done. I have one partner in Guatemala with an organization called Friendship Bridge that does just really tremendous, I can't say enough good things about them, really tremendous work, but specifically with women in rural areas of Guatemala. And they work with them through sort of solidarity groups, so groups of women who meet on a monthly basis, receive a number of different trainings at every single sort of group meeting every single month. Through Friendship Bridge, they have access to just tremendous business and mentorships programs, to women's health and reproductive health services, which are fairly unattainable in the areas that Friendship Bridge works. And Friendship Bridge has found tangible impact in family income as a result of the services that they're providing to women. I just think that that's so important. And I think it's really critical for us not just to say why this is important, but to design services that are specifically tailored to women, and then to measure and test and see what works. And that's what we've tried to do at Kiva.
Yeah, those numbers are shocking for sure. I did not know that. When our listeners lend through Kiva, will they be able to see what happens to the donated money and how?
Yes. So if you make a loan on Kiva today, the first time that you receive a repayment from your borrower, and when you make a loan, you can see what the future repayment schedule is expected to be. Every time that the borrower to whom you lend makes a repayment, you'll receive a notification in your inbox saying, if you make a loan to Kate Bennett to start a small business or what have you, every time I make a repayment, you'll get a notification in your inbox saying Kate has repaid you X%. She's, on progress to repay her loan. Many of our partners also post at the end of their loans updates explaining how it is that the borrower ended up using the loan, what impact it's had in their life. And a number of our borrowers actually will go on to perhaps take another loan out from that field partner. And if that happens, you'll also receive a notification saying, hey, this borrower has continued to relend. Here's what they're actually hoping to do now with their business, which is really exciting, because I think it's the person-to-person connection that our lenders really love and that I really love about Kiva. So we try to sort of foster that connection as much as possible.
I love that. When we were talking the first time, I was surprised to learn that Kiva isn't only in the market of microloans to individuals, but also in areas such as green finance. So what all does Kiva do?
Such a good question, and it's something that I particularly am very excited about. So what we know is that Kiva does microfinance fairly well. We've grown considerably in the last 12 years. We've done work that we're really proud of. And microfinance does have immense potential for improving the lives of poor and vulnerable excluded populations around the world. In the last 40 years, micro savings and microcredit services have reached nearly 200 million people, and that's really tremendous. But while the existing system strives to reach everyone, traditional microfinance just still leaves a huge number of people out. Some borrowers are still slipping through the cracks, and those are people like subsistence farmers that have uncertain seasons and harvests, perhaps students who cannot afford college and there's just not loan products that are designed for them, perhaps extremely rural families with little opportunity or access. So one of the things that we have tried to do is we've launched a program called Kiva Labs, which essentially is to test solutions outside of traditional microfinance, test them out and see what works. And one of those particularly is in the area of sort of clean energy and green finance. And there's a number of challenges in green finance or clean energy finance that make it really tricky for microfinance institutions or social enterprises, what have you, to offer those loans or for clean energy to actually reach the people that might need it most. A couple of those reasons, or a couple of the reasons it's important, number one, for clean energy to reach those individuals is that traditional sources of energy are pricey and they're toxic. The vast majority of people off the grid depend on kerosene and diesel and charcoal and burning wood for light and heat. Those are expensive sources of energy. They're also dirty and they're dangerous. Indoor air pollution from household cooking fires has actually been cited as the leading environmental cause of death around the world, and it's entirely preventable. So this is an area with incredible potential for change, but there are high barriers. And some of those are that price is the first and foremost among them. Clean energy products are expensive. And credit for clean energy technologies is largely unavailable because they're not yet, or they're not clearly and directly income generating, which calls into question borrowers' ability to repay. The other issue is that getting clean energy products and affordable financing to prospective customers is a challenge. A lot of these people, they're off the grid because they're rural, and some of these individuals are too rural for banks to lend to them profitably. And therefore, getting those clean energy products to communities, it's expensive and it raises their costs. So one of the things that we've tried to do on Kiva is to test out solutions to some of those problems. So those might be through loans to end users or end purchasers of clean energy, like using a pay-as-you-go system, trying to use carbon offset credits. So essentially, repayments might come through the carbon market, trying to use automatic repayments that are deducted from cost savings. So say I'm using a clean cook stove and I used to buy a bunch of wood fuel, but now I have to buy less. Some of my repayments can come through that difference. We've also done loans for retailers and sales agents. So we've tried to create a supply chain and integrate it into rural and remote areas, which both creates new jobs in the process, but also expands clean energy access in areas that don't have it. So what this all means essentially is that if your listeners go to kiva.org and you search our green loans, what you'll see is a huge variety of green loan products. And those are loans for, anywhere from organic conversion for crops to building climate change resilient housing to purchasing a clean cook stove or a solar product or maybe a biodigester. And I was actually just at the Latin American Regional Biodigester Conference in Argentina last week with a number of our partners. And so I've been much more excited about these. And so for your listeners that are not familiar with biodigesters, here's how they work. They're amazing. Here's how they work in broad strokes. So fresh manure is essentially mixed with water and deposited into a biodigester. These are a great product to sell to rural agriculturalists that have anywhere from 5 to 10 pigs or cows, what have you. You mix fresh manure with water. Bacteria then breaks down that animal waste into biogas that's served in a biogas reservoir. And that biogas can be generated and used for household energy purposes. So a boiler or a kitchen, and the rest of the waste can be used as organic fertilizer or sold. So the genius of the biodigester is that it takes an input, animal waste, which is something that farmers have a lot of, and usually they would be inclined to make disappear as quickly as possible. And it outputs precious, expensive resources that are essential to daily life, and that's energy and fertilizer. And it does it in a way, it's capturing that animal waste, preventing, any potential health impacts, or even, it sounds perhaps trite, but one of the things that farmers have said they like the most about biodigesters is actually the control of the smell. So moral of the story, if you go to Kiva, you might see a loan for any one of these things, whether it's a biodigester or a clean cook stove, and you can fund an individual's purchase of one of these products. And that's huge, because 10 years ago, to be frank, this wasn't a possibility. And what is most exciting to me is, I specifically have a lot of passion for green finance. To me, this is increasingly important as climate change impacts accelerate around the world. And for me to be able to go to Kiva and say, I feel that education is valuable, I feel that small businesses are valuable, but because my cause is green finance, I want to make a loan to that particularly, I can do that on Kiva. That to me is really exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Some practical things. If someone were to give a loan right now, where would she go and how can she do it?
Oh, so easy. Go to kiva.org, that is kiva.org, and you're done. You can go to kiva.org, and if you click on our Lend tab, basically what someone will see are thousands of loans around the world that are actively fundraising and looking for support. You can decide whether or not you want to make a loan. Perhaps it's to education, perhaps it's to clean energy finance, perhaps it's to water and sanitation. Whatever your cause is, you can search for a loan that fits that bracket. Maybe you are, a single mother. You can search for another single mother on Kiva and help her to access finance for something. Perhaps you want to make a loan to someone in your local community or the area that you grew up in. I actually have made a number of loans. I'm originally from northeastern United States. I'm from New Jersey. And I've made a number of loans to individuals near where I grew up in New Jersey. But I've also made loans to people in areas that I've lived in Ecuador and Peru. So you search for loans depending on what might inspire you or what appeals to you. You click loan $25 or more if you're inclined to do so. And once you make that loan, Kiva sends those funds to the field partner. They're dispersed to the borrower. And once the borrower begins paying you back, you can decide, as I said earlier, to take that money out of the system or to leave it in the system and to make another loan and to relend and relend. And what's so cool about Kiva that your listeners might find particularly exciting is that your $25 in 2 or 3 years from now isn't just $25. You can recycle it and make 1, 2, 3, or however many loans you like. When I started lending on Kiva back in, I think it was 2009, I certainly wasn't depositing hundreds of dollars at a time, but because of the time that I've spent making loans on Kiva, I've been able to recycle my funds a number of times and have had much more impact than I would have perhaps felt with just a single $25 donation somewhere. And I've been able to see myself replicate those funds. It's sort of like I've been able to touch more loans and touch more lives with the same $25, which I think is really sort of special.
That is very special. And I think it's also a very big motivator to keep thinking. It keeps you into it, to keep wanting to donate more and to keep giving those $25 to more and more people. So to conclude, even though we've talked about, this is basically what you've been talking about the entire time, but why should we donate money to Kiva?
Well, I'll tell you why I make loans on Kiva. There are a lot of different ways to create economic and social good in the world. And what is very particular to Kiva is that you're able to lend and relend alongside thousands of others. And that is what we believe is the most powerful and sustainable way to make an impact. Kiva basically opens up large pools of reusable funds through the support of our lenders to support local solutions that are designed specifically for the local context. And really critically, it creates a partnership of mutual dignity between lender and borrower. And I think for me, that has always been the most important thing about making a loan on Kiva is, yes, I love being repaid and being able to recycle my impact. And yes, I love feeling empowered to start chipping away at the causes or the world challenges that I think are important: poverty, climate change, women's rights. But the most important thing to me is that Kiva, it's not a handout, it's a hand up. It is a contract and a partnership of mutual dignity between lender and borrower. That is why I make a loan on Kiva. But I think what is so cool about Kiva is that it means something very different to everyone. And so your listeners, I'm sure, have a wide range of interests, of priorities, of things that they're passionate about, and a wide range of things that are important to them in the causes that they support. And Kiva means something different to everybody, but that's what makes it great.
Exactly. Do you have anything you'd like to add or any questions?
I just want to thank you for having me on. It's been so lovely.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. It was so great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellen.
I want to close this podcast by saying something that I heard recently, and it went something like this. If a certain cause, such as starvation or poverty, keeps you up at night, but you're not doing anything about it, then consider giving as little as $5 a month to an organization helping these people. It may seem obvious, but you're not only helping these people indirectly, you're also saving yourself from sleepless nights because you'll feel empowered because you are doing the only thing that you know you can do. Thank you for listening to the Power Women in Green podcast. Learn how to greenify your life by heading over to powerwomeningreen.com. Here you can find the latest green news and the best eco products from my favorite kind business.